This episode of Nerdist News is brought to you by Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Is Spider-Man the real reason why the Venom movie is going soft? With the Venom film less than a month away from release, the team behind the flick are doing everything they can to remind us that the Spider-Man anti-hero is on his way, and you'd better be ready, because it's gonna be edgy, real, and hardcore.
Like a turd in the wind.
And we can see that from its marketing, from an original track by Eminem for the film to this new poster of Venom doing his best version of Gene Simmons cosplay. But despite all of the promises of grim, gritty, and in-your-face, it looks like Venom may be pulling back on some of that, after we got a report about the film's rating from the folks over at Fandango. Since the Venom film was announced back in 2017, it's been hyped up as a horror film. Venom's director, Ruben Fleischer, even described it as a darker, grittier, kind of edgier comic book movie. But apparently, it won't be as dark as everyone suspected. According to Fandango's Eric Davis, the Venom standalone film will supposedly have a PG-13 rating instead of its suspected R rating. There are, of course, a ton of financial reasons as to why you'd clean off some of the blood and guts to make the film a softer PG-13. R-rated movies that aren't named Deadpool tend to have a harder time at the box office. And now, with its lower rating, Venom is tracking for a $60 to $70 million opening weekend, which Sony execs have to be pretty excited about. But gobs and gobs of cash aside, the real reason for Venom's lower rating might have less to do with money and more to do with the MCU. One of the major reasons for the lower rating, according to Davis, is Venom's regular comic adversary, Spider-Man. Davis tweeted, "Venom is officially rated PG-13. Hearing from studio sources, the reason is so that Venom and Spider-Man can face off at some point down the line. If the movie is R, it's hard to do that." Sony has made no allusions to wanting to tie their Marvel films into the MCU, and who could blame them? 2 MCU films this year made over $1 billion each at the box office, though the official name of the Sony Marvel Universe is Sony's Universe of Marvel Characters. Many of the 900 Marvel characters they have access to are in the Spider-Man side of Marvel canon, with Spider-Man being a central character in the MCU and also a major part of Venom's character arc. It makes sense that Sony would want Venom to connect that sweet, sweet Marvel Cinematic Universe moolah. And if you think that's a lot to swallow, you're not the only one. While promoting 2017's Spider-Man Homecoming, Marvel Studios head honcho Kevin Feige and Sony executive Amy Pascal sat on a junket together where Pascal described that Sony's cinematic universe and the MCU will be connected to each other, which caused Feige to do this. Despite the long setup for that joke, if Feige's expression is any indication, he's not enthused about Sony tying their films into the MCU. To make things even more confusing, last January, Tom Holland was spotted on the set of the Venom film. While on Collider Heroes, the late John Schnepp said, "All I'm saying is that Spider-Man," and I'm talking about Tom Holland's Spider-Man, "is going to be in Venom." He clarified this by adding, "I'm not saying Spider-Man is in the film. When I say Tom Holland's Spider-Man is in the film, I'm saying Peter Parker is in the film." So, the Venom film isn't part of the MCU, but Sony really wants us to think it is, and now the actor that plays Spider-Man in the MCU is going to appear as Peter Parker in Venom? If we were Kevin Feige, we'd be gulping really hard right now. Though this is all extremely confusing, it's worth noting that Sony still holds the cinematic rights to these characters. Spider-Man is technically on loan to the MCU, so this whole thing may be gulp-inducing, but there's not a lot that Marvel Studios can do about it. But if you're upset that Venom's standalone film isn't going to be the dark and gritty horror movie that we were all expecting, don't worry. Venom's director, Ruben Fleischer, left the door open for an unrated cut at some point in the future, saying, "I wouldn't rule anything out. We'll have to see where it lands, I guess, but I wouldn't rule anything out." But what do you folks think? Are you interested in seeing a PG-13 Venom film? Would you like Sony's Marvel films to tie into the MCU or exist in their own universe? And seriously, what's the deal with Venom's weird tongue on the latest Venom poster? Let's discuss. Thanks again to Square Enix's Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is out today. Experience Lara Croft's defining moment as she becomes the Tomb Raider she was destined to be. Shadow of the Tomb Raider features a hidden city with tons of locals to interact with, hidden crypts, and loads of side quests. To outwit and outmaneuver her enemies, Lara must become one with the jungle, become a master of stealthy takedowns, and learn environmental camouflage. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is available now for Xbox One, PS4, and PC wherever games are sold.